You know, I can't stop thinking about this, so I'm gonna tell this, guys. Short tale from this class. Now, this teacher, I tell it, like, this English teacher was really mean, okay? Now, she, like, unironically, chat, she had a bit of a hunchback. She also had one, I don't know why one, she had one tooth on the front of her mouth that was yellow. I don't know how that happened, but combined with the fact that she was really, really, really mean, kids definitely would bully her about that behind her back. I didn't, I'm just saying it's a thing. But that came up a lot. So honestly, that didn't help matters, you know? She would overhear something like that, she'd just get angry or stuff like that. So this lady was like perpetually in a bad mood, okay? She was always in a bad mood. Now, one day we're in class, and she literally lays out the school newspapers, which nobody reads the school newspaper. If you were on the group of people that made the newspaper for your school, I am very sorry. Nobody read those things. So she gives us all the school newspaper. She's like, I gotta catch up on work, read this, that's your assignment for the day. And then she goes to her desk and just starts doing paperwork. And we're all like, okay. You know, this is like a 10th through 12th graders. We were all mixed up. English. So I was like, okay. And we, you know, no one's reading the paper. We're all sitting around, we're talking and stuff like that. Now, I don't know how many of you know what origami is. That's the art of folding paper, not the seasoning. That's oregano. But I know how to do one thing in origami by memory. And that's how to make a paper bird, like a crane, and when you pull its tail, the wings flap. So I decided I was going to take the school newspaper I don't know why I did this, and make the largest paper crane I've ever made. And by God, I did. I made a very large paper crane. It was a majestic, and I, you know, proceeded to, you know, have it on my desk, you know, and it was made of the whole newspaper, so it was really big. But it was very fragile. It was very fragile. And I'm playing with it, and the guy next to me rolls up his newspaper and staples it. And then goes to somebody else and goes, can I have your paper? And they're like, sure. And he rolls that into his now club and staples it. And he keeps doing this until he's got this thing that is made with solid stacked paper and staples. He's made a weapon. And he's like, hey, throw me the bird. And this guy's name is David. And I was like, okay. So I throw the bird at him like it's a paper airplane. It's not meant to be thrown like that. So it just kind of flops through the air. And he swings and the thing just explodes. It just gets shredded to pieces. And we have a chuckle, and then I take the stapler, and then I start making the remnants of my bird into a shield, a very crappy shield. And we're playing around. She still hasn't stopped us or looked up from her work chat. We're in the middle of the classroom doing this. Another guy takes his newspaper, rolls it up diagonally, and makes a very long but very fragile lance. We're literally playing like we're 10-year-olds at the Renaissance Fair at this point, and we're all like 18, okay? We're screwing around. At some point, something happens that was quite loud. And she looks up and sees us standing there. And she's like, how many times do I have to tell you? I'll never forget. That's what she said. She goes, how many times do I have to tell you? Which made no sense because she had not said anything in like a half hour. And then she says, sit down and be quiet. Okay. So I sit down. And we all sit down and we stop horsing around a bit. And we're doing our thing. Now, I'm here. And then I've got David, his last name, I'm gonna abbreviate it because internet. Let's say his last name was Star. Star is to my right, and David 2, we'll just call him 2. 2 was behind me. He was not involved in any way up until this moment, okay? David 2 was not involved in anything up to this moment. And out of nowhere, David 2 reaches up diagonally, grabs the club off of David 1's desk, and then just smacks me across the face with it. Very hard. Very hard. Like, I knew this guy, we were friends, he was screwing around, I didn't really care, but that was what happened. That was what happened, okay? Like, he's just like, hey Mike, whack! It just nailed me. And, you know, I get smacked backwards, and I was like, oh my God. And it smarted, you know? I took a paper bat to the forehead, really, you know, point blank range. It smarted a little bit. And the teacher gets up, and she goes, that's it! As if I have done an additional crime to cross the line. And she stands up, and she cuts right up in my face. My face, not his, my face. And she's like, I told you, so she's like, I told you over and over to keep it down, and you didn't listen, and now you're going to disrupt the class one more time. And I'm like, I didn't do anything. And she's like, and she's chewing me out. And I have no idea why. Like, Khajiit was innocent of this crime. I didn't do it. And I'm trying to like interrupt her and tell her I didn't do anything. And she's like, I'm taking you to the principal's office. Da, 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 da. And I literally, while she's yelling at me, I'm just like, ugh. And I just put my head down on my arms while she's yelling at me to show her I'm so sick of this. All right. So I put my head down on my arms and I feel something wet run down my arm. And I'm like, what the heck? I've got blood all over my arm. And a kid across the room goes, hey, Mike, you're bleeding. And I was like, what? Where am I? And I grab my head, and apparently, I don't know if it was a paper cut or if a staple caught me. I didn't even feel it. I was just like gushing blood from my forehead. Like so much. Like it was a really like alarming amount of blood. And I was like, oh my God. And she, for the third time, she goes, that's it. And I was like, what? Like apparently bleeding was an additional crime, chat. Bleeding was the final crime that I committed. You do not bleed in this woman's classroom. So she grabs me by the wrist. She grabs me by the wrist. Like, school teachers today wouldn't survive this. And she like starts to kind of and she grabs the paper weaponry. The club, the shield, and the lance, all in one claw. She had claws. And she starts to like drag me toward the principal's office. And she goes, you, with me. And she points at Starling, or Star, the guy to my right, who was the guy who made the mace, who hadn't done anything since she told us to sit down 3 crimes past. And she goes, you, come with me. So she takes me and Star and starts taking us toward the principal's office. And I'm like, what the heck? And like, I keep trying to talk as I'm going down the hallway, and she will not let me talk. And finally, I managed to get the words out, and I'm like, look, if I'm in trouble for getting hit, and he's in trouble for making the weapon that hit me, what about the guy who hit me? And she's like, who hit you? And both of us in unison are just like, David Gray. Like we just literally just with smiles on our faces, just rattle off his full name. And she takes us to the office, and she goes into the office, and there's like a front desk area, right? Where like a volunteer students are sitting there. And she, holding her claw full of weapons, is like smashing her fist on the counter. It was like, I caught these 2 guys, and I'm covered in blood. Like at this point, it's just a sheet. I look like I literally just fought the Batman or something. And she's like, these 2 guys were fist fighting in my class, and I go, fist fight? She goes, Michael, sit down and shut up. Like her lies just kept building. They just kept getting more extreme. I was like, what are you talking about? And she goes, sit down and shut up. And I'm like, okay. And I sat down. I was so confused. And I was like, surely she's gonna pass this off to someone sane. There's no way this is gonna keep going. Like, it was so surreal. I was in no way, like, scared for whatever reason. And I sit down, and like, the person that was working the counter was like, you know, this, and she's like, all right, I'll call the principal. I'll call, yes.
You could do so.
Okay, bye. And so then the person was like, all right, I'm gonna call the vice principal. Now our school is so large, we had like 4 vice principals. I didn't know any of them. And angry lady storms out. She waddles off, and the person at the desk is like, all right, you need to go into the clinic. And you know, it was like an adjoining room. So I was like, all right. So I go in there, and I'm like, oh my God, dude, I'm just covered in red. So I wash up as best as I can. And you know, the bleeding is slowing down. I'm like, all right, I don't need stitches. And I'm patting myself with paper towels and stuff like that. It takes me a few minutes to clean up. I come out of the office, and David Starr is sitting in the chair just like smiling, and beside him is the guy who hit me with the bat, and he's like it's just pouting. And so we go out there, and man, this is a long story, but we're gonna do it justice. So we go out there, and then the vice principal calls the three of us back there. And she calls us back into the room, and she says, all right, what happened? Miss Angry Lady told me y'all were fist fighting. And it's like, all three of us at once. We were not fist fighting. And she's like, shut up, you. And like, she just started like, you talk now, you talk now, you talk. And it's a smart lady. She made sure like our stuff lined up. And she got the story out of us. We tell it, she's like, yeah, she does that sometimes. Like when I told her about the teacher lying for the 40th time, she's like, yeah, she does that sometimes. And it was like this adult was just done with this teacher as we kids were. And I was like, all right. And she's like, okay, if all of you call your parents and tell them what happened, I'll let this go. And the first kid is like, I gotta call my dad and tell him I made a paper bat, because that's all he had done. And she's like, yeah. And he's like, this is so stupid. And she's like, yeah. and then I was like, I'm pretty sure if I call my if I just go home, my parents are going to ask why I look like I just been mugged. And she's like, just call your parents and I'll let you go. And I was like, fine. So she's like, she goes to the first one. And she takes David Starr's phone number and she calls him. She calls the house. And he's like, hey, Mom. He's like, yeah, I'm in the principal's office. No, I'm okay. No, I didn't do anything. No, I made a paper bat. No, listen. I made a paper bat and a different kid hit a different kid with the paper bat. Yeah, no, I didn't do anything. I don't know why I'm here. Yeah, that's it. Okay. All right, I'll see you at home. And then, and then he got to leave. And she's like, all right, you next. And so David Grave rolls his eye and he calls a phone number. I didn't know this till later. He called his mom's boyfriend. His mom was divorced. And he's like, hey, Brad. Like they were on a first name basis. He's like, yeah, I hit a kid at school with some paper. And Brad's like, don't ever call me again. Okay, Brad, bye. Have a good day. Click. Brad literally just hung up on him in the principal's office. So then it was my turn. The Grave got to go. And then it was my turn. And so I call my mom. And I'm like, hey, Mom. And she's like, yeah. And I was like, so... she's like, are you okay? Why are you calling me? I'm like, look, I'm in the principal's office. I got very, very minorly injured. And she's like, oh my God, are you? And I'm like, look, I'm okay. It was like a bad paper cut. I was like, my forehead was bleeding. Another kid hit me with a paper bat. We were both roughhousing. And I was told I had to call you, tell you what's up. And she's like, I would have asked when you got home why you were bleeding. And I was like, that's what I said. And she's like, all right, but you're fine? You're good? And I was like, yeah, I'm good. My head's got a big scratch. It's gonna stop bleeding soon. I'm fine, I promise. And she's like, all right. And was it because of bullies? And I'm like, no, not this time. So she's like, okay. I'm actually on my way home right now. I'm gonna go buy Arby's. Do you want anything? Yeah, actually, I could go for a large chocolate milkshake, a regular roast beef sandwich, maybe some potato The VP, the vice principal, rips the phone out of my hand and goes, who is this? And are you Mrs. Muckluck? Are you really? This sounds like a prank call. She's like, you're there with my injured son and you're gonna ask me who I am? She's like, no, I'm sorry. He was ordering food. It sounded weird. I'm sorry. I was making sure. Yes, ma'am. We take the safety of our students as a top priority. Yes, ma'am. You have a nice day, ma'am. I don't know what my mom said. So then I got to go. And then by then, although it had slowed down, I was still bleeding a bit. The bell rings to leave the school day. So I gotta go. So I leave the office and I walk out and I've got blood on my face again. And I am feeling like I just own the place, right? I am feeling like I own the place. And I'm just like strutting down the hallway. Like, you remember when Spider-Man, the one that was played by the guy with Chihuahua eyes, when Spider-Man had venom on him and he was just like walking around and he was like doing the figure, like I felt like that. I was strutting the hallway on the way out, like I gotta go to my locker. I'm bleeding. I'm going, like people are parting, like what is going on with that guy? Like, they were all like, what is wrong? Why is this kid bleeding profusely? And I go to my locker and I get my bag and I go home. And then the next day, God, yeah, chat, but wait, there's more. The next day, I go to school. No, I'm sorry, there was like a weekend and then it was like Monday. I go to school and I happened to run into David and David in the hallway and I run into him and I was like, hey guys, they're like, hey. And we just look at each other, and then I lift up my bangs, and I had this thing that looked like a Harry Potter scar. Not a scar, it didn't scar, but it was like a scab. I had like a Harry Potter line for like a week. And we all just burst out laughing. And we just kind of like slap each other on the back, and we just walk off. I get to lunch the next day. This is the last part of the story. Sitting down with some guys I know, and one of them is like, Mike, what happened to your head? And I'm like, oh my God, so bleh. I tell the whole story. And he's like, you're the idiot she was talking about. Excuse me? What are you talking? And he goes, yeah, I've got her on Mondays. And she told us the story about how she had heroically had to break up a fight on Friday. And I was like, she what? This lady was straight insane. She was cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. She was telling the whole her classes what a hero she was. That she broke up a fight. And yeah, stop me from getting killed by the evil man. I don't know. But yeah, my friends were, oh, you're the dummy, you're the idiot. I was like, whoa, wow, okay. But yeah, that's it. I didn't realize it would take 2 metas to tell that story, but there we go. I hope you enjoyed that, you guys.